K-Fed 2.0. Once an adrenaline competitor, Kevin Rayne entered Impetus as a veteran of the sport, used with the likes of Dave Falcon and Corruption to help build the younger, fresher talent. With Gary Federline debuting as an honourable upstart, Kevin Rayne found himself competing in high-profile matches, defeating the savage and brutal Dylan Dark. With the veteran's renewed motivation, he finds himself competing for Dave Falcon's World Impetus Championship, hoping to achieve one final accomplishment. Thanks to Dave's allies, Empire, Kevin fails to cap off his career with championship status. It seems as though Kevin Rayne's title dreams couldn't become reality. With no other options available and with his age creeping up on him, it seems as though Kevin's boots are ready to be hanged up. With Kevin Rayne planning a retirement speech, Gary Federline interrupts, believing the scene to be a little too preemptive. With Gary refusing to see the legend go out without one last title run, he asks why he can't compete for the tag team titles with him. Due to Empire costing Kevin the world title, Gary asks what better way to get back at Extraordinary than to take their very own tag team titles from them. Tempted, Kevin denies the offer and leaves. With Rayne refusing, not believing in himself anymore, this creates many funny backstage segments as the cool and stubborn legend gets prodded by the annoying and childish Gary Federline. With Kevin not officially retiring, Gary spends the next few weeks grabbing the legend's attention. Not only does Gary win matches, but he hits Rayne's own moves to do so and promises that no matter what it takes, he and the fans are going to motivate the legend to compete for tag team gold. Along with Charlie Finch, Gary is attacked by Extraordinary on a particular episode. The trio of Empire and Dave are ambushing the two. With the 3-on-2 beatdown taking place, Kevin Rayne finally appears and helps fend off the villains. Finch stands tall over Falcon, but more importantly, Kevin and Gary stand tall over Empire. Due to Gary's and the fans' motivation, Kevin wants to retire on his terms. With Rayne and Gary forming an alliance, they intend on taking the tag team titles away from Empire. Along with Kevin's finisher, the Hurricane Rainer, the team uses Gary's finisher move, the Federline Credibility, the Fed Cred, to work their way up the tag team ladder. From this, Gary turns into a little school kid, elated to be teaming up with an idol of his. Kevin is calm but a little annoyed by Gary's childish attitude. Prepared for a title reign, Gary is warned by his partner not to get too excited, as he might end up disappointed, just like he was with the world title. Gary convinces Kevin that he will be a champion because he's got credibility. Federline credibility. Gary is proud of his terrible pun, with Kevin rolling his eyes and face-palming for the future. These cringy scenes continue as Gary later tells his partner, before they reach the tag team titles, that they need a name. Kevin asks what that name should be. Gary answers with silly names like the Federline Express, which sounds great to Kevin if they were frickin' train drivers. Kevin claims that it should be a hybrid, a melding of the two of them. Gary comes up with the World Wrestling Federation. You know, like Federation? Kevin cringes at the lameness and is happy to keep working on it. Until then, he just wants to win more matches. The unnamed team does exactly that. They win more matches, becoming the new number one contenders to Empire's tag team titles at the next pay-per-view, Unleashed. A week before the pay-per-view, Kevin is sitting down in his locker room with Gary standing in front of a paper board, pacing, thinking. The board has a blank sheet of paper. Gary tells his partner that he's been thinking long and hard about a name for the two of them. Kevin already wants to leave, with Gary persuading him to stay. Gary builds up the name with excitement, claiming it to blend the two of them perfectly. Okay, so Kevin Rayne, Gary Federline. Oh no. Oh yes. Behold! Gary lifts the paper of the paperboard to reveal the name K-Fed. Kevin holds his mouth, shocked. He can't believe it. Like, that name is perfect. With Gary elated, Kevin vents his love for the name because it's already a goddamn name. Kevin gets angry and reminds Gary of a previous era of wrestling where Kevin Federline was actually a thing. In fact, they might even get sued for using the name. Gary bursts into tears, claiming everything to be ruined. Kevin eventually feels bad and decides to cheer Gary up by adding to the name. The legend gets up and simply writes on the paper board, writing 2.0 underneath the written name. What was a terrible name before, K-Fed, turns into apparently a really good idea, being K-Fed 2.0. Gary loves it, and the team name is set. Gary hugs his partner, with Kevin telling Gary to back off. But of course, Gary walks away chanting, K-Fed 2.0, K-Fed 2.0, with Kevin smiling at Gary's attitude. So, the name is official. K-Fed 2.0 is born. Kevin and Gary head into Unleashed, the Challengers, and, after a hard-fought victory, leave as the champions. Finally, Kevin gets his vengeance on Extraordinary. The new champions celebrate until Rayne strikes down Gary. Kevin drops his newly won title on the floor and hits a double-arm DDT to Gary right onto the gold. The legend leaves with anger and without his tag team title. Gary enters alone the following episode with both tag team titles wrapped around him. He competes with irritation and is victorious despite his emotions. Getting on the mic, Gary is handed the tag team titles and sends a message to Kevin Rayne. Announcing that Rayne has refused to show up tonight, Gary calls his former partner a coward and states that when he decides to show up, he'll be waiting. With the scene seemingly over, the president, Sam Pullen, enters with good news and bad news. He announces that next week, Kevin will vent about what happened at Unleashed. However, with the team of K-Fed 2.0 no longer being a team, he can't have Gary walking around with two titles that he simply cannot defend. As a result, the belts must be vacated. At first, Gary is reluctant. However, he eventually hands over the gold, stating that after Kevin's actions last week, the titles actually effectively mean nothing to him, just like his partnership and friendship with Kevin Rayne. Gary orders Sam to tell his longtime friend to show up next week, or else. With the tag team titles being competed for by ways of a 12-team tournament, Kevin explains his actions the following week. He never wanted to be a tag team competitor and never wanted a little kid running around beside him as a pathetic cheerleader. Since being a part of Impetus, he always wanted to be a champion and earn a title by himself, under his own power and merit. Instead, Kevin claims that he was manipulated and persuaded by a child who wanted to use the veteran and experienced skills of Kevin Rayne to get success. Rayne feels that the fans should be showing him sympathy for this emotional turmoil, rather than cheer for an insecure punk who just wanted to go by the embarrassing team name of K-Fed 2.0. Gary Federline eventually interrupts his former partner and, rather than talking, fires a shot at Kevin and a brawl begins. Gary gets the upper hand and attempts his Fed Cred finisher, with Kevin escaping the ring and running away, leaving Gary in the ring, wanting a fight. The following episode promotes a battle between Kevin Rayne and Gary Federline. However, it is revealed early in the night that this much anticipated matchup must be cancelled. Throughout the night, Gary charges into Sam Pullen's office and demands information. Sam calmly explains that Kevin had every intention to be here tonight as he made it to the hotel, but unfortunately has food poisoning and is sick. Gary can't believe it, reminding Sam that he was promised a match with Kevin tonight. With Sam trying to explain, Gary interrupts, asking what hotel Rayne is at. Sam refuses to give that information, with Gary saying that he's going to find out. Gary gets facetious, demanding Sam not to find him a replacement opponent tonight, as, after pretending to cough, claims to be sick as well. Gary leaves with Sam in stress. With Gary leaving the venue, the camera follows him to a nearby hotel. Gary gets out of his car and storms to the entrance door, only to stop. Gary sighs, realizing his silliness, and begins to walk back to his car in disappointment. However, behind him, he sees a maintenance employee walking with a ladder. He walks alongside the employee and insists on helping him, creating small conversation. Gary follows the employee through a door with the front of it reading, "Janitor's Room." Commentators ask what the hell Gary is up to. Later in the night, we return to the hotel scene. The janitor's room on the outside of the hotel is seen. Clanging, banging, and screams are heard from the room. Then, a moment of silence. Gary then opens the door, seen in janitor's clothes, holding the ladder. He then proceeds to walk into the hotel, into the reception area, and calmly states that a light bulb needs fixing in a room and he can't seem to remember the number. He refers to the guest name of Kevin Rayne. The receptionist tells Gary the room number rather easily, with Gary thanking her politely. Gary makes his way to the room, knocking on the door. Kevin answers, holding tissues and blowing his nose. Kevin may be sick, but it doesn't stop Gary from brawling with his rival throughout the hotel until security pull the two apart. The hotel hostility leads to a street fight at the next pay-per-view, the 1-year anniversary spectacular, where, after a heinous battle, Kevin Rayne obtains a sneaky victory. Defeating Gary Federline in the street fight at the year anniversary spectacular, Kevin continues to dominate and hopes to win the 20-man battle royal to become the next challenger for the Coast to Coast title. However, Gary Federline returns after the street fight hiatus and costs him the chance. With an added spark to their feud, Gary demands the two to compete again, hoping to obtain a win of his own against Rayne. However, he wants it inside a steel cage. With the cage match kicking off the next episode, Gary prevails with a victory over his nemesis. Gary hopes to rebuild his momentum as he faces Johnny Fabuloso the next week. However, Johnny's manager, Terry DeLita, stands on the apron, distracting Gary, wearing a giant coat. Terry looks to flash Gary, not with nudity, but by wearing a K-Fed 2.0 merchandise shirt. With Gary losing by the interference, Kevin Rayne appears on screen. Located in his house, Kevin is seen sniggering despite his previous loss inside the steel. He notes how Gary can't seem to get over the death of K-Fed 2.0. Kevin gets serious and claims that he also can't seem to get over their rivalry as well. He states that last week was supposed to be the week where he ended their feud once and for all. However, it didn't end up that way. Kevin will not quit until he gets the last laugh and makes his message really simple. He challenges Gary to one more match at the next pay-per-view, Impulse, to not only end the feud, but perhaps to end a career. Reminding Gary that he decides when their rivalry will end, he knows that after losing in the steel cage match, he needs his redemption to show that he can still be a champion. Kevin explains that if he cannot beat Gary in this rubber match, then his goals and dreams of becoming champion should lay to rest, just like his career. If Kevin cannot beat Gary at Impulse, if he cannot get the best of him in this rubber match, then he will quit, just like he wanted to do months ago. Only this time, he's not going to have a pathetic crybaby child telling him not to. If Kevin loses at Impulse, he will be saying the words, "I quit," as he challenges him to the final battle of an I Quit match. At Impulse, the two brawl around the arena in the I Quit match. Gary has multiple situations where, despite being in control, he ends up having several lapses of judgment, subconsciously not wanting his idol to quit the industry, and of course, not wanting to deliver such pain. This showing of mercy allows Kevin not only to escape the situations, but gain control of them. Finally countering his opponent's attacks, Gary is finally able to keep Kevin down and places him on a table at the stage area. Gary sets himself up on a nearby apparatus in hopes to dive onto his rival. Moments away from mayhem, Rayne orders, pleads, and tells Gary to stop. About to quit, the cocky Kevin pulls out the K-Fed 2.0 merchandise shirt yet again. Being taunted by his rival and former partner, and of course, former friend, Gary looks on in sadness as he cannot do it. He can't dive on his idol, his partner, his friend. About to climb down the ladder, Kevin wipes the sweat from his brow, realizing that his plan has worked. However, Gary has second thoughts and finally shows no mercy and dives on Kevin through the table. With Gary splashing water on his rival, reviving him, he makes Kevin quit on stage after locking in the lethal submission hold, the Regal Stretch. Despite the drama that unfolded during the match, it's what happened after the match that gets really interesting. Gary begins to exit but is distracted by a recovering Kevin. Showing rage, Gary doesn't seem to be done with his rival as he picks him up and throws him in the ring. Gary stays on the outside and instead simply walks away, allowing Kevin to say goodbye to his fans. Gary exits with respect, allowing Kevin to thank the audience. A true goodbye speech for Kevin Rayne is promoted on the next episode. Before the legend can say his goodbyes, Gary has a victory in the ring and grabs a microphone after the match. He speaks about his rivalry with Kevin Rayne. He knows that after all they went through, Kevin just wanted to show his ability, to show how good he not only was, but still is. Gary thanks Kevin for gracing him with their matches over the last few months and, like a class act, wishes him the best of luck in his future. Although the legend would soon say goodbye at the end of the show, Gary would then start a new feud with Charlie Finch, being attacked by the villain and Immunity, exposing him for the weakness of respect.